Still not quite out of Act 2. It's right before Act 3 starts. So almost there. I think I could finish in the next few days, maybe. I'm gonna try really hard. As long as I can finish this piece of it in the next few days or in the next week, then hopefully by the end of October, this draft will be done. I'm gonna actually be proud of this book when I get to publish it. Fancy meeting you here. Welcome to my first vlog style video that I've wanted to do pretty much all year. It is currently 6:42 a.m. which I don't know if you could see that on my screen. It's kind of blurry. On Saturday, September 27th. I'm just gonna take you along on a day in my life and see how it goes. I have a full-time job that I work 7:30 to 5. If you've been here before, then you know that I'm also a writer and I'm working on my debut novel, Falling Star. So I'm planning to work on that a bit today, kind of update you on where I'm at with that and what phase in my rewriting process I'm in. I don't really have a lot of plans per se. Gonna play some video games with my friends and my partner and hoping to get some writing in. But the first things first, I have to awaken the beast, let out my little puppy Macaroni, and go take her outside for a walk. So yeah, let's go do that. Break. Good girl. So I'm back shortly after I sat down to read. The groceries showed up and I had to put those away. I took a shower and then me and my husband and Macaroni, my corgi, went on a little trip down to Dutch Bros and I treated everybody. Matt got a little pup cup. Now I haven't had any time to write yet, but that's okay. I had plans to play some video games today. I'm going to be playing the Daft Punk Fortnite experience with my best friend Liz, my husband today, and just like very shortly here actually. And then right after that, Liz and I are going to play Split Fiction, which is a super fun game. If you haven't heard of it, it's a great game for anybody, but because I'm a writer, I immediately wanted to play it when it got announced. It's by the same people who did It Takes Two. If you've heard of that game, it's like a co-op game. This one is also co-op. You have to play it with the second person, but like that's part of the charm. But the whole thing is like two writers show up at a company that has promised to give them a book deal for stories that they submitted. But when they get there, they have to, instead of just showing up, getting the money, signing contracts, they are told that they have to be hooked up to a machine. It's this sort of like stasis ball that will extract their story idea from in their heads, and they'll get to like live out the whole story in a sort of like virtual reality situation. But once everybody gets hooked up, Mio, who is a sci-fi writer who is just there for the money, starts to feel kind of hesitant and like something's not quite right. And the other main character, Zoe, who's a fantasy writer, she's there just to prove to herself and her family that like writing hasn't always been for nothing and she doesn't need to go get a real job. So she's there because her dreams are coming true. She has no qualms. She's hooked up to the machine. Mio starts like kind of pushing back and trying to leave, and the scientists and like the corporate baddie basically, or like, no, you have to stay here. She trips and falls into Zoe's stasis ball and chaos ensues. Like, that's not supposed to happen. The machine's sort of starting to glitch out, and the whole game is you and whoever you're playing with, one picks Mio and one picks Zoe, and you have to kind of go through Mio's sci-fi stories and Zoe's fantasy stories, because as it turns out, the company isn't just trying to extract their one story idea that they submitted, but all of the story ideas they've ever had, finished or not, and basically steal all of their ideas. The one thing I think is silly about the game is that they sort of pit Mio and Zoe against each other in that sci-fi is better than fantasy or vice versa, which is like, I feel like an argument that either has like, I don't know, it's just silly to me. But by the end, the whole goal is like they're supposed to fall in love with each other's genres and like get to know each other and become friends. They also kind of touch on the whole idea of writers and artists like put the parts of themselves in their books, or like certain things are influenced by things in their real life. Through that, you kind of get to know Zoe and Mio and they get to know each other. There's some dark things going on there. It gets kind of sad at some points, but it's really good. I don't want to spoil it. Sorry, I like my hair's kind of frizzy right now. I was going to like curl it and like do my makeup, but today's turning into kind of a no filter day, I guess. Macaroni is down here being a little baby. She doesn't like when we do anything but hang out with her. I am back. It's 6:09 p.m. on Saturday, and to be completely honest, I don't know how much writing I'm going to get in. I'd like to work a little bit on my book tomorrow. Sundays, I typically like to take the day off of doing anything, but because I do have a full-time job, I do kind of have to take the time I can get to work on things. My full-time job is not writing, so I have to work around that. So I'm going to work on my book a little bit, but I wanted to tell you what exactly I have been working on, since it has been quite a while. So earlier this year, when I started up my YouTube channel again, I rebranded it as Jasmine's Liminal Space, because it was going to kind of be like a rest stop for me or anyone else where I could talk about my creative process and kind of give updates on me working on my debut novel, Falling Star, which is a fantasy story with some darker elements, but it took a good chunk of the year to kind of get in a good spot with the book. And part of that also, any free time I had really needed to either be dedicated to thinking about how I was going to fix it, or so once the year started, I finally convinced myself, okay, after a few months like of just, I kept hitting a roadblock. Like I get 10 or 15 chapters into my rewrite that weren't just edits anymore. I really had to rewrite the whole thing. The draft that I had published as serial fiction, it wasn't what I wanted it to be, for one, because it was still technically like a really early draft, and then two, like it worked for serial fiction but not necessarily for novel form. So I getting stuck trying to work on rewrites because I didn't want to change too much of it, or I didn't know how, and I kept convincing myself like, oh, it's not going to be that much of an ordeal, like I don't have to take that much time. And so because I didn't just admit to myself that maybe I needed to overhaul way more than I thought, even the whole thing, I took like a novel fast drafting course, I took a scene writing course, and like I was learning a lot of good stuff, but it still wasn't helping me with my problem, which was I needed to really redo the book. I had to redo my outline, and I spent months doing that because I kept thinking like, oh, I don't have to change this part, I still need to make this work because I really liked that. And turns out Kill Your Darlings is very true. I was not letting go of so much of Falling Star that I needed to redo, and it really, I don't like to say it wasted time, because I feel like as long as you're learning, time isn't wasted, but sometimes it does feel like it was wasted time to me just because it took me so long to get to this point. So it did take like a good chunk of the first quarter of the year for me to get to the point where I was like, okay, I have to really push and let go of a lot more than I thought I would. And by the time I did and I had a good outline that I liked, it was like July. The idea of getting the book out this year seemed less and less realistic as time went on. So definitely not coming out this year. I'm shooting for 2026 for sure though, because where my outline is at right now feels really good, feels solid. I decided, okay, what's a last ditch effort? I kept seeing a lot of writers say, like, why don't, even in the fast drafting course that I took, why don't you write a full story synopsis and chapter outlines, which, like, I did chapter summaries before when I wrote the first draft of Falling Star, but like they weren't, I still let myself figure a lot of things out as I was writing, which like I still do. I'm still going to be doing that anyway. Things will change. That's just like what happens no matter how much you outline. Like you're still exploring, there's still the exploration process of writing. Even if you just have a full story synopsis, it's not supposed to be like super detailed, but like the way that I write them is pretty detailed and becomes more of like chapter outlines. It's almost like essentially a pre-draft, which at first I was like putting off. That's a lot of work. I might as well just jump into the draft. But like if I'm having trouble drafting, maybe this is a good idea. So I just kind of bit the bullet. So I've just been working on that since like the last half of August and then all of September. And my goal was to have it finished by the end of September. And that's just in a few days. I don't know if I'm going to make it, but I am very, very close. I'm in the end of Act 3. I'm almost done. Even if I'm not done by the end of September, I'll still be really happy because this is more progress than I've made in a year on this book, on these rewrites. And I'm so much more happier with the book now than I was. And I'm actually feeling like I'm going to actually be proud of this book when I get to publish it. That's really exciting. My cousin was visiting last weekend and she asked me like how rewrites are going. Are you actually rewriting it? Like, is it completely changed? And I was like, well, not entirely. The heart of it is still the same. Some of the big events are still the same, but how things happen is a little different. I had to change the main character's motivation, added some extra details, moved some things to happen earlier than they did. I don't really want to say exactly what they are because what if something changes a little bit again? I don't think they will at this point, but I want to bite my tongue sometimes because I don't like saying, oh, this is how it's going to be. And then somebody get really, really excited to read it. And then me be like, hey, this isn't in the book anymore. And then like somebody be really disappointed. Originally, I had the main character Astrid not believe in the gods in her world. And her fiance Everin are believed to be the reincarnations of the goddess of fate and the god of night, and our supposed soulmates and like a beloved couple to mortals everywhere, basically. When the glass palace and the realm of the gods fell, they fell together and they died, and so Everett and Astrid are believed to be their reincarnations. Part of that's like been a problem for them their entire lives and kept them from like having any sort of like agency, and they kind of feel like they're the only people who understand each other. They fall in love. They decide that to escape their fates, after their wedding's over, the night of their wedding, they're going to run away together. And originally I had Astrid sort of want to call off the wedding, and then I was going to change that initially. But anyways, they went through with the wedding. Everything went wrong. They didn't technically get married, and the wedding turns into a bloodbath, and Astrid has to go on the run with her bodyguard and estranged best friend, Oriana, and find the Scissors of Fate before Everin catches her, before her newlywed husband catches her, but they weren't actually married. This is where things changed, is I decided it made a lot more sense if Astrid and Everin did believe in the gods, because I thought it would make more sense if they did believe in the gods. But instead, Astrid believes that the goddess that everyone loves and that she's reincarnated from, she starts to have these visions and fractured memories, or at least she thinks they are, because that's what tends to happen to the Starbloods, who are demigods, reincarnated gods and goddesses, is they kind of had fractured memories and visions of like their past lives. There's something else going on, but Astrid doesn't really know it yet, but she is seeing part memories, part something else. She starts to wonder if maybe the goddess that she's reincarnated after had a hand in the fall of the gods. Is she going to repeat the cycle? She's starting to see weird visions around her own palace and wondering if she's actually got the blood of a monster in her. This is the blood of a monster, Astrid. Sorry, I had to have a Twilight reference. It is ho 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 season after all. Yeah, so she starts to wonder if maybe she is the monster and she is putting the lives of her loved ones in jeopardy. So she decides Everin's her ride or die, even though he's been making her feel kind of weird. His mood and his temperament has been kind of off for a while now, and like he had gone on this trip and she thought he was going to come back and call the wedding off, but he didn't, and he seemed normal when he came back. So she was really confused and then starting to feel like alone and isolated and mistreated, and then he comes back and everything's normal again and her visions are getting worse. So she's like, okay, this is my chance. We have to leave now. It seems like things are okay. They go through with the wedding, get married, actually married, but then the same thing happens, but a little different. They are supposed to run away before the reception starts. Something happens. The wedding turns into a bloodbath. Astrid has to go on the run with her bodyguard, Oriana, and same idea. Has to find the Scissors of Fate before her newlywed husband catches her. She starts to fall in love with her bodyguard on the road. It is a sapphic fantasy romance genres. For a while, I was thinking it might end up kind of veering into like dark fantasy territory. I don't think that's going to happen, but it does deal with darker themes like grief and toxic relationships. And there are moments that get pretty dark, and like some of the inner monologue gets pretty dark. But I don't think I'd categorize it as dark fantasy at this point. I just think it has dark elements at some points. A lot of the story ideas that I have end up being more cross genre. I tend to write fantasy or horror or dark fantasy. That's typically the story ideas that I've had kind of morphed into those genres. But I love everything I've changed so far. I think it's going to be a lot better, especially because of how this synopsis is going. It really has ended up as more of a pre-draft, which I'm very happy about, because that means I'm almost done with draft 2. I'm going to have to flesh it out a lot more. The point of this was to get through it as easily as I could without feeling like anything was stopping me. If I had something that I needed to figure out, I would figure it out right then and there instead of doing my sort of vague chapter outlines that I've done before. And it's a great way to find out right off the bat if in sequence your scenes and the events that are happening make sense. If there's a gap or something doesn't make sense, like jumping from one to the next, like you'll see it right away. It's wild how that happens. And that's what I would run into, is I wouldn't be detailed enough in my chapter outlines before, but I'd still be like, oh, well, this still has to happen in the next scene. I'll figure it out, like how it gets to the next scene while I'm writing it, while I'm actually writing words. And I would get so stuck. And this makes much more sense to me and my brain, and I will be doing this going forward, at least like I want to say forever, but like I don't until something else works better for me. But this is how I'm going to be writing books from now on, because it's just so much easier. And who knows, like I'm self-publishing Falling Star, but I do want to query the next book that I write. So just being able to produce a long synopsis and maybe even a pitch before I start writing would be very beneficial if I do decide to query and like try to go into traditional publishing. It would just be a really useful skill to have in general. But more importantly, it will help me draft without wasting too much time on too many different drafts, especially because it takes me so long to get through a draft. And because like I said, I work full time, so I don't get to just dedicate all of my time to writing. And not only that, but like, you know, as I said today, like I spent a lot of time playing games with my friends, and that's what I do on the weekends. Like tomorrow I'm going to spend most of Sunday with my dog. Anyways, I'm going to have more updates for you guys in all the vlogs going forward on how my book's going. So for now, I'm going to get some writing done, then check in with you on like a little wrap up for this vlog. Okay, I'm back. So it's been about an hour and I made some pretty good progress. Still not quite out of Act 2. It's right before Act 3 starts. So almost there. I think I could finish in the next few days, maybe. I'm gonna try really hard because it'd be really cool if the next vlog I make for you guys is either me finishing on the vlog or being able to tell you that I finished my whole synopsis and chapter outline, and virtually a pre-draft of the second draft. Or this, it's a new draft, even though it's like completely rewritten. So yeah, it'll be draft 2, and as long as it, like, after I'm done fleshing it out and it feels more like a like complete draft 2, then I can move on to actual self-edits again, which I use Gina Denny. I don't know if you've seen her on TikTok and Instagram, but her writing advice is super solid, and like I have like one self-editing book that's super helpful, but Gina has like a 6 steps of self-editing that I attempted to use for this book until I realized I had to rewrite the entire thing, accepted that I had to rewrite the entire thing, that I will be using again when I'm done, because it was very, very organized and it scratched an itch in my little lizard brain for like how to tackle edits without getting too overwhelmed. So that's the next step, but that will be the next step when I get to that point. So this is my goal. My hope is to finish my synopsis and chapter outlines by the end of September. I still got a few days, so I don't want to discount myself there. And then if I'm not done by the end of September, then I want to be done with this synopsis and chapter outlines by the end of the first week of October. Then because it'll be a pre-draft, it should be fairly, I don't want to say easy, but it should be a little bit easier for me to get through. Fleshing it out, writing in everything that I didn't write in the synopsis and chapter outlines, because some of it does feel like very, very guided, like a good, basically like a screenplay or a scene play, as Susan Dennard calls them, of the actual chapters. So I think I should be able to write those fairly quickly, and by quicker I just mean like I will know exactly what I'm doing, so it shouldn't take nearly as long as if I didn't have all of this extra work I already did. I'll just be like filling in the blanks, sprucing up sentences, probably rewriting and tweaking things, not in the sense of anything like really, really big, because that'll be in edits, but I'm feeling really good about it. So I'm thinking as long as I can finish this piece of it in the next few days or in the next week, then hopefully by the end of October this draft will be done in a good spot, and then I can reread it, make notes, what I need to edit, basically make myself a little edit letter, and then apply kind of everything to the 6 steps of self-editing that I'm going to be following, and then spend hopefully November, rest of November and December just working on edits and get it in a good place. By the end of the year, come January, I can send it to beta readers. Anyways, you guys will be getting updates. I'm gonna practice not having the mic in my face. This will not be my last vlog. I had a lot of fun filming this today, but I did get some good writing done while it was still only a little bit. I did make progress, and sometimes it's the little progress that if that's all you could do, it's better than nothing, and at some point you will still have a finished thing. And that's why even if you could only take 10 minutes a day to work on your book, like take it because at some point you will be done. Thank you so much for watching. Welcome to Wandering with Jasmine. Although this is no longer my liminal space, I think this is a better use of my channel and a better name for it. I want my platforms to feel like a sort of creative rest stop. I like to kind of think of my life as like a road, especially now that I've been working on Falling Star for so long. And when you're on a road, my life and my art and my writing, and while you're on a road, you're kind of making your map as you go. You're deciding where detours are and which roads to avoid and which ones might be shortcuts. And also when you're on a road, you need to pull over where it's safe and make a campfire and refuel, eat, rest, take a nap, put your feet up. Maybe you meet other travelers and you swap stories, you share things that you've made or that you've done along the way, your adventures. So I kind of like the idea of my platform, whether it be my YouTube videos or my newsletter, my Substack that I send out, like a love letter, and I guess these videos kind of are too. But I like to think of it as like a place where it's a rest stop for me and kind of checking in with myself and with you. And it's also could be a place for you to find community and make connection with someone. Like even if you never talk to me, like I hope that if you're struggling or you feel like you don't have enough time to work on something creative, or like making things is so hard and learning a new skill is so hard, you see that it's not always easy for me because I have so many other things I also have to take care of. Sometimes that makes it harder and take longer for me to finish things. But I hope to and plan to eventually finish this book. And I also started doing writing streams this month. I'm not sure how frequently I'm going to be able to do them. I'm hoping, well, I'm planning to at least do them once a month. Once or twice, hopefully, definitely once. They're going to be on kind of floating days, and I kind of thought that would work because I'm calling it the Wandering Writers Club. So it's not always going to necessarily be on the same day each month. It might be, it might move, it might wander, just like us. If you're interested, you can join me there. I'll post on the YouTube community tab when I'm going to do them. So I'm gonna call it here. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please go ahead and leave a comment down below. If you're working on something, I'd love to hear about it. Whether it's a book, a short story, poetry, whether you're an artist and you draw or paint, tell me what you're working on down below. I'd love to hear about it. If you're writing a story and you feel like sharing anything about it, like what genre are you writing? What's it about? I'd love to hear. How far are you on it? What do you want to do with it? Are you gonna keep it to yourself? yourself? Are you planning on self-publishing? Are you gonna start querying soon? I love talking about writing and I love talking about art, so please feel free to share with each other, share with me. Also, if you liked this video, you could go ahead and hit that thumbs up, and if you do want to catch the next one, you could go ahead and subscribe. That's the end of my plugs. Don't forget, no matter how rough the road gets, we keep going. And with that, I'll see you on the road, my friend.